We are live. Okay, so let's see here while we're getting everyone on. Hello, hello. My name is Niki Lopez with Niki Fit or What's Your Elephant, and we have Shanna Lord of Let Us Swim. And we're going to be talking about water, laps in the water. Hello, hello. Let me get her online. Let's see here. So yeah, today is Friday, TGIF.
Yeah, thankfully, right?
Yes, yes. For some of you who, this is a brand new account, well, fairly new compared to my other accounts. I'm an artist, a social practitioner, and I'm also with Diversity in Aquatics and just, adult learn to swim. And I sometimes talk often about me having anxieties in and out the water. I've had some water traumas when I was younger. And so it was really challenging. Someone introduced me to, someone who said, hey, we could teach you how to swim. Even though I love the water, I never thought it was possible. So for me, a few years back, I started swimming with DIA Swim Club. Then the pandemic happened. I also tried my first marathon the November last year, November in 2021. And I thought I was ready. I kind of I panicked, for the first time in a long time. And so I had some setbacks, and last year was really crazy. And so I'm trying to get back to where I was and then continue my swim journey. Sometimes I do swim with Let Us Swim, who's been helping me with that. And so I reached out to her because I wanted to talk about, when you have those gaps, when you're feeling anxious, and see what type of tips and things like that. So I just want to give a moment for Shannon to kind of introduce herself and talk about what she does in the water.
So first, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Tips and tricks when you've been out of the pool for a long time. I find that because you know what, it happens to everyone. No matter what level of swimmer you are, it happens to everyone. In fact, I was expressing to her not that long ago, it's been a minute, and I had to figure out a schedule, a time, like what works best for me. Mm-hmm. So for myself, I am always up early in the morning. So I had to make it where I created a time, put it in my schedule, and that's my time. Mm-hmm. With always being busy, always working, and then of course having a family, making sure that I get my time in and not compromise with it is what I had to do. So my 5 a.m. swims is because that's my time.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to double back really quickly, since this is the first time you're on this account. Can you tell everybody a little bit about Let Us Swim and what?
So Let Us Swim is a LLC. It is a business where we teach anyone from the womb to the tomb how to swim, how to self-rescue. The importance, we do education. We go to schools, local elementary and middle schools in the Broward County area, explaining the need for learning how to swim, the dangers of not learning how to swim, the statistics of kids that are drowning every year. This year has been a ridiculous year when it comes to drowning, where we have gone above the average number that we have been in the last 20 years. So far more drownings right now, and we're really based on education. So we do education, we do teaching, we also coach. So we are an all-inclusive swim company that also works with diversified swimming.
Awesome. And yeah, so my thing is that I love the water. I love where I was progressing, even though sometimes it kind of felt for me a little slow. And one of the things that I experienced that led to my panic when I did the triathlon in the water is that when I was on a steady, like every Saturday morning, swimming and learning to swim, and I had a lot of anxiety. I also wasn't breathing properly, right? Because I have, I'm someone who is a trauma survivor, and so what I didn't know is that I had a habit of just holding my breath, right? So when I'm in yoga, when I'm in therapy, when I'm in the swim, they're like, you know, take a deep breath and all that. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't take a deep breath. I can't, you know, like, so soft belly breathing was really challenging for me to get. And I didn't realize it was connected to those things. So there was that thing, getting comfortable in the water. And because I've had, you know, when I was younger, having time where I almost drowned in the water. I was, you know, all my cousins, I came down to Florida many years ago, and for some reason, you know, kids are illogical.
Yeah. Right.
So I knew I couldn't swim. My cousins could swim. They swam out. And for some reason, I thought it was a bright idea to say, oh, there's this stone in the water. I'm going to stand on the stone and watch them swim. And at some point, the stone started to sink. And so I had a really traumatic experience.
Right.
And you know, I used to have dreams of drowning and all that. So even, you know, it's just a lot of things with water. And so I was going on a good path with the swimming and letting go of some of the fears, but not, you know, like being able to do the lap. The pandemic hit. And then at the time, when some of the pools opened up to do independent swimming, I would go with my kickboard. So I was doing kickboard swimming for an hour. So by the time our swim club got back into the water, I was more advanced, but there was parts that was missing in terms of, like, you know, I was swimming for 2 years, but still couldn't swim on my back. I still can't swim on my back that much.
She can.
You know,
I've seen it and I got video to prove it. She can.
Treading water, you know, what else? So some of the things, and so when it comes down to, like, the Mighty Mujer is a triathlon specifically for women, and most importantly, women who's never done a triathlon. So you have different levels, but they really want to encourage. So I was like, okay, you know what? I've been swimming for a little while. Maybe I'll try it. But the challenge is some of the things that they said to do when you're in the water and uncomfortable, you know, like you might need, if you take over, they said, oh, if you get tired, just go on your back. I'm like, I can't go on my back.
Right.
But I got to that water in a lake where normally I swim in a pool. So not having some of those experiences prior to, like, I panicked, and I didn't panic for a long time in the water. So that was a real setback for me. And then the year after, just, you know, life traumas and, you know, life challenges happen. It was a really challenging year for me for about 1.5 years. And so I wasn't in the pool as consistently as I was. And then I had anxiety about, like, when I went in the water, like, I felt my anxiety level just spike up. So, because I was nervous, and then I was also very disappointed, you know, so just kind of getting through that. And people like, oh, it's great. You know, hey, at least you tried it. You're doing it. It's fine. You're going to have setbacks. So I had to get over being disappointed in myself. But then also the time of, hey, Jane, how are you doing? There's quite a few people on here. So hello to everyone that's here. We're talking about swimming and some tips. So there was a lot of things, you know, I don't want to get into all the details, but there was a lot of things where I didn't, you know, because I was working some big projects, I didn't have the time to be as consistent as I was. So I went from swimming 2 to 4 times a week to not get into the water. And then when I did go there, I just felt anxiety, right, and panic. And the thing is, like, my brain and my body wanted to prepare for, like, if I got in the water, it's not like, oh, I'm having anxiety now, so let me change. I was like, I may have anxiety, so it's messing up my swim. So, you know, I was just like apprehensive, and I'm like, I'm missing the water. I'm dreaming about the water, and how do I get back? And then how do I move forward from what I feel? Like, how do I let go of all those things and just keep swimming? So that's why, you know, the tips. And I did go back into the pool this Saturday. It was great, but it was definitely challenging. The other thing I would say to you is that I felt like my lung capacity is now crap.
There is nothing that's going to build your lung capacity like swimming. But the thing about it is, if you look at your lungs as a muscle, it'll snap back. And it'll come back, but it takes practice, it takes time, and it takes patience. It takes forgiving yourself for not being in the water. I think the week before last was my first week, and I'm not going to say how long that I have actually gone into the pool to swim laps and just do some laps for myself. And I went in there saying, it's been a long time. I know I'm going to be tired. I know I'm going to feel heavy, but I'm just going to push through. However, as soon as I started my swim, literally like at push off, I was just like, I think I'm going too fast. In my head, you know, these are the things that I'm saying to myself. I think I'm going too fast. I'm going to burn out, especially for not being there in so long. So of course, 4 laps in, I was just like, man, I am tired. Like, I pushed through. I did my 1 mile in X amount, XYZ, whatever it was. But the importance is knowing that you will get past that. Those 4 laps, you're exhausted. Guess what? On lap number 10, you're not going to feel so bad. You're going to keep going, and you get your second wind, just like in running. You know, they always talk about that second wind. You get your second wind. For me, it's probably somewhere around 10 laps.
Well, I would say I would never expect that someone like you would feel like, oh gosh, I got to get back and, you know, like have that. So it's really affirming to hear that, because sometimes what I always feel like, oh, it's me. I'm the, you know, because of my thing and how I can't get over it. And I guess what you were saying about like just saying, hey, you know what, it's going to be tough. You just have to go through it. But that's also why I wanted to have this live conversation, because, you know, for a couple of years, I like to share my little swim videos, my slow-mo, my music. You know, and sometimes I tell people like, look, I still, like, I'm swimming, but I still have challenges. So I have to also let go of that, right? Because like I am progressing. So I don't have to keep reminding people that, no, well, I still have these things, and just say thank you. So there's a thing like that. But also because I feel like if I'm having those challenges, someone else also can have those challenges too. And so even though I know I'm happy to be able to call you and ask you questions and all those things like that, I wanted to have it online. So at least there's some type of resource for other people who may be struggling with like swim challenges and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But not only that, but you mentioned trauma. And I think it's important for people to understand that trauma does not leave. Trauma is there. You work through your trauma. You don't get over your trauma. Your trauma is always there. You become better. You become stronger. But the trauma still lingers in the background somewhere, just waiting to come out. So it takes consistency, and it takes you know, some type of dedication to the cause, you know, dedication to your swim, dedication to your mindfulness, dedication to your mental health, and knowing that, hey, when I'm swimming consistently, this is how I feel. And knowing that if that makes you feel better, you have to be consistent with it. And it's a matter of finding the time to make it happen.
And I want to give a shout out because I see the Jamaican Consulate online. So
Hey.
I'm recently, well, a couple years ago, I got my dual citizenship because, you know, I'm Panama, Jamaica, and Cuba, but I have a dual citizenship for Jamaica. So just give me that. Well, we're all your Panamanians as well, so we got but yeah, so when you said that, you know, it reminded me because, you know, I do, you know, I'm also comfortable to say I have a therapist, and I'm proud of that. And I don't know if it was you or the therapist, because I swam with you, and I think could have been you. You're like, you know, you're never going to not have that anxiety is never just going to disappear.
Yes.
So that was a little disappointing because I felt like my goal was I'm going to get to a place where I'm just going to be fully comfortable and free, and I'm not going to have that anxiety. But so
having anxiety, I think it's important to define what is anxiety, right? Because a lot of times we might get the what do you call it, like butterflies in your stomach. Is that anxiety, or is that anticipation, or is it excitement? They all thread a very fine line of having similar things. You know, they're very similar in its execution and how it presents itself. So a lot of times when I feel like, oh man, I don't know if this is anxiety, it's actually excitement. And I think it's important to be able to differentiate and learn that, okay, I'm not anxious about this. in a negative way. I'm excited about what this is going to bring forth and turn that anxiety into excitement.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Because I mean, think when you're anxious, you get those butterflies in your stomach. When you're excited, you get those butterflies in your stomach.
Yeah.
So just turn it around.
And
that requires mental work.
Yes. And that's the thing that I found myself doing, because I even went to the pool for a little quick, a short period of time yesterday, and I was working with one of the coaches with DIA Swim Club, and he was like, "Oh yeah, do the backstroke," and I said, "Well, I can't really do the backstroke. I did it some months ago because Shanna was like, I don't know, you just don't be taking, I'm trying to like say some things so you can take it a little easy. Like when I started swimming with Shanna, and I was just like, okay, just I have anxiety and trauma in and out the water. I don't do the deep end, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, so we're going to start you off at the deep end. I was like, did she not hear?
Like, what is she talking about? I just said I don't do the deep end.
But I am appreciative and grateful of that, because it was just like, I felt like when I was swimming with you, the fact that even though I was sharing it with you to kind of know like, okay, she's not going to be comfortable there, so maybe, give her an easier thing, you actually was pushing me to do the harder things and I feel like when I, usually when I go to a pool, I don't do it as much, but definitely I used to always do this. I'm like, okay, what's the depths of it? I usually try to tell people I'm 5'11", but really I'm kind of like 5'3".
Not 5'11", 5'3". That's such a great gap, but okay.
Yes. So I'm truthful about my height when it comes to water. So I'm constantly like, okay, I don't even want to go to the 5 foot. If it's 4'9", I don't want to go, because I'm like, I need to be, once the water starts playing around in this region, it's just like, oh no. But for a long time, I couldn't swim, because I would go to Lauderhill Lakes and swim. I couldn't swim to the 6 foot. But I feel like that time where, well, first of all, Shanna swims way too early in the morning. She was like, oh, you can come out and swim with me. And I'm like, yo, great, what time? 5:30. To be somewhere at 5:30. Hey, Niki.
It's actually to be in the pool at that time. So when I go and I say my 5 a.m. swims, I'm already in the water at 5 a.m. Maybe a few minutes earlier, but
yeah. So for a period of time, I was swimming with Shanna a while back, and I feel the fact that you kept saying we're starting at, like, you didn't even allow me to start at the shallow and swim to the deep part. You're like, we're starting at the deep part, which I was a little frustrated, but I feel that was an integral part of me kind of getting to the point where I was able to go to the 6 foot part and back. Now, sometimes I still like, because, and I guess maybe you could speak to this too, right? So when I swim at one pool, the lanes go deeper, but it's deeper at the lane. It's not going from shallow to deep, right? It's consistent. But if I go to the other pool, it goes from shallow to deep. So most of the time, if I'm at Strandham, it's consistent, and and I'm just doing my laps. But if I ever have to go back to Lauderdale Lakes, then I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know where I'm going to be, because sometimes I feel like, my brain wants to prepare for me having a panic attack or anxiety or something like that. So I'm working myself up instead of trying to focus on, you know what, I could do this, because if I could swim in 5 foot water, 4'9" water, I could swim in 6 foot water. But sometimes when I go back and forth to the different pools, I feel that angst again. And I guess you're saying some of it is like, well, is it anticipation? Is it anxiety? Whatever have you. But do you have anything to say about like when you're going to different pools, and like if you got comfortable in one pool, but now you're not comfortable in the other pool? Like,
I think it's important to travel, use different pools. I use a pool at the gym, local gym. I use the city pools. I swim in anywhere, and I think that mental work that I spoke about earlier, it takes mental work, consistent mental work, meaning you have to constantly tell yourself that You know, I'm swimming on top of the water, not under the water. I'm not drowning, I'm swimming. And as long as you're on top of the water, that pool is only maybe 3 feet deep, maybe 2 feet deep, if you look at it that way, because you're on top. You're only as deep as your body sinks down.
Yeah.
We don't, well, some people swim underwater, but for the most part, when you're doing laps, you're swimming on top of the water and being confident in the skills that you have. That's where that anxiety can turn to excitement. Excited that you can, excited that you're going to do it, excited that you're able to swim on top of the water, that you can swim multiple laps and not be scared, not have any fear of anything, because you are confident in the skills that you have. And that takes constant work. When I'm working with whether it be adults or children with trauma, those are things that I'm constantly telling them, constantly referring them to swimmers or mermaids, that they're doing a great job at swimming all of this length. And some people, they're like, oh, but they only swam like, 1 foot. I was like, that's 1 foot more than they did last week. Like it's celebrating every small step. That's part of your mental work when in dealing with trauma, is that you have to celebrate those small steps.
So thank you so much. So I guess that's that's it, in terms of like getting back into it and really taking on the mindset of, if I haven't been in the pool for a long time, just prepare to be uncomfortable and try to work through it.
And it's okay to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is okay, because you're gonna be better. You're gonna do better. It's nothing new. You're gonna do something that you've done plenty of times before. You might be a little bit tired, but
because yesterday when I was in the water and and the coach was saying, oh, do the backstroke. And I was just like, oh man, well, because I said, well, I did it a few months ago when I was swimming with you a couple of times. You were just having me do that, but I didn't do it in this whole time. But the thing is, I was in 3 foot of water, and I was just like, the minute the water dripped on my face, I was like, ah! And it's like, but when I think about it, like, okay, wait a minute, I'm in 3 foot of water. I could actually stand. So I guess for me, it's just that practice of mindset of like, okay, so what what's going to happen if the water goes there, or if you swallow water, or if you miss a step or something like that? It's not the end of the world, because it's not like I'm going to drown
Right, exactly.
in 3 foot of water with a coach right there.
You shouldn't, but I think it's also important for every swim coach to know the level of their swimmer. If you have anxieties about being on your back, let's start with the elementary backstroke. There's no water coming up and splashing on your face. I explained that to a lot of parents as waterlogging. So to a child or to a person that is not used to swimming on their back or not used to swimming at all, being on your back in gallons and gallons of water, and then having water just constantly dripping and splashing in your face, I like to relate that as waterlogging. It's uncomfortable. So start with the small stuff, start with baby steps, start with just floating, and getting acclimated to being on your back in the water, period. Even if you've done it before, start from the beginning, take it step by step.
So this has been helpful, for those of you, if you've watched it to the end. I'm curious, I would love to know, how are you in the water? Are you comfortable in the water? Do you have any water questions? If you want to put it in the comments, I'm sure Shanna, it's going to be on Let Us Swim as well, could answer it. And I just want to thank you for taking the time and coming out. And
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So if you're local in South Florida and you need a swim coach, and now you're doing group classes as well, right?
I do group classes usually in our cooler months, but I do offer group classes as well.
Okay. So it's a what do you call it? Single class?
Private lessons.
Private lessons.
Yeah.
I lost count in English for a minute. Private lessons, group classes, children. You also work with children with autism and other disabilities.
Yes.
And are you still coaching the
With
potential
Mia.
Olympian?
Yes, Mia, and you can follow her journey as well on Mia Goes to the Olympics. She is going to be in the Olympics next year, 2024 in Paris. Meet her there. She will be representing the Bahamas. So, and she's doing amazing right now. She finished Carifta, which is, if for anyone who doesn't know, Carifta is one of the bigger games. It's very similar, kind of like the Olympics for the Caribbean.
Awesome. So yeah, we're gonna wrap up today, and it is Friday. We got to get our TGIF on. So thanks for joining us. If you're watching on the live or you're gonna watch the replay, thank you so much. I hope you'll check out Let Us Swim, and I hope you get in the water today, this weekend, sometime this week.
Yes.
Ciao.
Bye.
All right. So then let me go.
This is